Hello, my name is David Mack, and I work for Mantech as an executive director for the Intel division. I'm going to go over some non-technical traits for technical success. Also, a coworker of mine, Steve Capinos, will also go do an overview of Mantech technical focus areas. And that will be the topics for today. Not advanced. All right. My goal is to share some lessons from working with 25 years with some highly technical people and how I've observed the success that they've had. That's my biggest goal, is to just share some lessons learned with you guys. So traits and skills, here are the topics. I'll go over them briefly, but you can read these for yourselves. I love this. What would be better? The pen that saved the day. Ownership is everything. We failed big time. Worst part of communication, expectations, and it's you, it's not me. And last but not least is, how big will my raise be? So I encourage you guys, whatever you do, to have a passion for whatever job that you take. It's not really going to do you much good if you don't have a passion for the type of work that you do. You may be well compensated, but personally, from experience, your work is eventually going to suffer if you genuinely do not have a passion for what you do. And I know that sounds like common sense, but honestly, you'd be surprised how many people they want to do a job, they want to get a job, and they don't realize they should really focus on having an interest and caring in what they do. So I would encourage all of you to truly have a passion for what it is that you're working with. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to always be looking around when you do find something that you enjoy, and constantly ask yourself this question: what would be better? What could we make better? If you're constantly asking that question, you'll find yourself in a constant state of improvement, and your employers will actually appreciate the fact that you are constantly pushing the company forward. So if you just ask yourself that simple question, what would be better? What could we do better? And you just look around and ask yourself that question, you'll start to find things and you'll see incremental improvements. And that's, as an employee and an employer, that's very good for both of you. All right, so I want to tell you a story about the pen that saved the day. A plane lands at Dulles Airport. And there's a device that we have to get data off of. And it's very sensitive data, it's very critical data, and there's time sensitivity to getting this data. We received this device, and there's a person in charge of getting this data off of it, and they can't get any data off of it. And it's, like I said, it's very time sensitive. But the person notices that when a certain amount of pressure is applied to this device, it suddenly works. When that pressure is relieved, that the device stops working. And through a little bit of trial and error, they realized that their device is slightly damaged. So we're trying to figure out how to make this device work so that we can get the data off of it. This person actually came up with the idea of applying a little bit of pressure. We couldn't figure out how to get that data to be applied consistently. So what he actually did was he took apart a pen, and inside that pen, there was a little spring. That spring had just enough pressure that could be applied to the device so that it worked. And literally, it was a $5 pen, but that pen actually saved the day as far as us being able to get data off of that device, and in a very timely fashion that was mission critical. So it was the reason why I bring that story up is the creativity it took to solve that problem under pressure is a very good thing. So please don't limit yourself. Embrace your creativity, and you'll never know when that might save the day. Ownership is everything. Now, I sincerely believe in this, because I feel like if you have a vested interest in whatever it is you're working on, if you take ownership of that, then you will treat it like that. I think everybody in here has some experience where there's something that you own and you take pride in that. If it's your work, for example, and you take ownership of that, it's such a good thing. Now, at the bottom of that slide, you'll see where it says own your success and failures equally. I highly encourage you to do that as well. When things don't go well, if you look around and you take ownership of that, people will respect that. If you start pointing the fingers at other people in the room saying they didn't do this and you didn't do that, what ends up happening is you don't have a team anymore. You have a bunch of people fighting for their own interest, and that's never a good thing. Which leads me to this story. We were working on a piece of software in the division, and this software was supposed to be a huge success. It's supposed to change how we did business. And when at the end of the day, once we rolled out the software, it was a massive failure. It was not a good thing. And people were looking around to see why this didn't fail. So we had a meeting. Everybody's in the room. And like my previous example I was talking about, instead of pointing the finger, what happened was people started saying, you know what, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. I could have done this better. And they went around the room individually and nobody was attacking each other. But at the end of the day, we all acknowledged the failure and the results the second time around, the software was much better. Now, unfortunately, I can't discuss the purpose of that software or the nature of it because it's classified, but I can tell you just seeing everybody take individual ownership in that room when we had a failure was very impressive. I love this quote because I feel like it's 100% true. If you guys have ever talked to someone and then you thought you were being perfectly clear and they took what you said and went in the other direction, this quote, and I'm not going to read it to you because you can see the screen, but this quote is a perfect example of that. So I highly encourage you guys to work on your communication. That is probably the most important skill that you can come out of school with. That's not technical, is the ability to communicate. So please pay attention to how you're communicating with your coworkers. And the other lesson I'll share with you is I feel like every person that you interact with shares with you how they like to be communicated implicitly. So if you start to pay attention to how they like to be communicated with, as an individual, you'll have better interaction with that particular person. Conflict. Conflict, in my opinion, every conflict that you have, whether it's personal, professional, fair or unfair, every conflict boils down to an expectation that wasn't met. So if you find yourself in conflict and you start to ask yourself, instead of asking yourself about blame or anything about that, ask yourself, what expectation did they have that I didn't meet? You can even ask them, the person that you're having a conflict with, what expectation did you have that I did not meet? And you'll be amazed at how you get a different response from the person. Instead of being defensive, they actually will say, I expected you to do X, Y, and Z. And then it opens up a massive amount of communication that you probably wouldn't have had if you guys were just busy locking horns and fighting. So I highly encourage you to keep just that simple phrase in mind. Every expectation boils down to, every conflict boils down to an expectation that was not met. It's you, it's not me. So this story is, we had an engineer, he was a senior engineer, he could write low-level kernel drivers, kernel-based drivers, very smart person. He was working with two junior engineers, and they were working on a project together, and he was senior. There was a bug, and they could not find this bug. So he walks up to them and literally holds the hardware that he's working on about chest height, and he drops it. And he drops it on the table about 2 feet. And he literally looks at these two junior engineers and he says, it's you, it's not me. And he's referencing the bug. So the two junior engineers are upset, right? Because they feel like they have a bug. They go to find it. They go looking for it. And guess who turned out had the bug? The senior engineer. It was him. Now, the title of this slide is "It's you, it's not me." The arrow, the visualization is basically humility and arrogance. I encourage you to be humble in your work. Okay, be confident, but definitely be humble in your work. What he ended up doing was fracturing the team, and that's unacceptable. And within a month, he was off the contract. How big will my raise be? So we had an individual we had interviewed. We looked at his resume, and his resume was incredible. He had reverse engineering skills. He had the clearance that we needed. He checked all the boxes. Incredible resume. We talked to him, and we started talking to him about the job, and we started talking about all the different cool things he would be doing, reverse engineering of malware, incredible work. So his first question was, can we talk about salary? And so we talked to him about salary. We gave him a decent answer, in my opinion. And so we start to talk about the technical work that we're doing again. And so we ask him if he's got any questions. His second question is, how big will my raise be? So we answered that question as best we could. And then we go back and we say, well, can you tell us what you're excited about for the work that we're offering you? His last question is, when will my first raise come? And at that point, I made the decision to end the interview and retract the offer that we had extended him. Now, the reason being is, and that may sound harsh to you guys, but the reason being is someone will always pay you more money. But we want people that are invested in what we're doing. We want people that care about what we're doing. And if all you're concerned about is money, you will always find somebody that's willing to pay you more money. And so that wasn't the type of person that we were looking for. But this individual, in 3 questions, talked himself out of a job. Now, what I will tell you is, if you love what you do, the money's going to come. You don't have to worry about that. So I encourage you, salary is a factor. I'm not blind or oblivious to that, but I would highly encourage you to not make that the primary factor when you go to choose a job. So as far as the skills, the technical skills that we're looking for, we do super cool work. It's all highly classified. I wish I could share those details with you. Unfortunately, I cannot. But we're looking for reverse engineers, people that use IDA Pro, Ghidra, mobile and desktop forensics, network forensics, software engineers, system architects, electrical engineering. Electrical engineering in particular, if you like to take stuff apart, fix it, break it, figure out how it works, those are the types of people that we want to talk to. So the work that we do is super cool. And unfortunately, like I said, I can't talk about it, but if you have more questions, you want to talk to us, you can certainly do that. And I think I'm going to turn over the next slide to my coworker, Steve.
All right, thanks, Dave. I'm Steve Capinos. I work in our innovation and capability office at Mantech. I'll go off script for a second to say that, what Dave was talking about, the passion and the creativity piece are really huge for what we do in the innovation and capability office. We're lucky that every day we get to look at customer problem sets and figure out ways that we can create capabilities through innovation that will help them with mission problems. And so, you all can see the slide. You can see the 5 technology focus areas we have at Mantech. And these focus areas really, though there's leads for each one and they each have their own kind of goal within the focus area, we all work together as well. And I think the best way to kind of talk through that is to give you an example. And the example I'd use that's really good that hits a lot of these focus areas are autonomous vehicles, right? So you get an autonomous vehicle and you've got the vehicle and all the systems associated with it. You've got whatever it needs to talk to. You have the infrastructure that's going to be created in cities and roads for the city and the road to be able to talk to the vehicle. So you start thinking about all those different components. The vehicle is, at the end of the day, a mission and enterprise IT problem. How do I create IT systems within that vehicle such that it can perform its objectives? Then there's an intelligent systems engineering component. So how do I create models that I can use to do my research such that I don't have to do everything with a live vehicle and a live environment? and all of the constraints that come along with that. So now we can create models of all of these systems to figure out how they're going to work together and what some of the issues are going to be. Then we're looking at the vehicle as it gets deployed and goes around the roads. That becomes a data at the edge problem, and it becomes an A3, an analytics, automation, and artificial intelligence problem. So as that vehicle is going throughout its environment, it doesn't have the time, it can't wait for a round trip to go out to the cloud or out to the server. It's got to do a lot of that processing locally at the edge. And then it's got to communicate with all the things around it as well. And that also can't do a round trip up and back. That's all local communications. So then cognitive cyber comes into it. What are the security implications related to all of these different autonomous vehicles being able to talk to each other in a rapid fashion in near real time, such that you can have a safe environment for the vehicles to operate in? And we get to that kind of utopia we see where you can be sitting in your car without even a steering wheel, drinking your coffee and surfing Reddit while you're getting to where you need to go. And so if you look at that, that's kind of just one example of how all of these technology focus areas would need to work together to accomplish their goals. So that was a real quick introduction to the 5 focus areas we have at Mantech. We're here all weekend, and you'll notice that we all have a passion for this. We're coming here during the weekend to engage with you all, hopefully to talk about our company Mantech, and maybe to find a way for you to come help us on some of these problem sets through internships, or if you're graduating, through your first job. So I'd like to thank you all for the time today.
Great. Are there any questions? Feel free to put them in a chat. Feel free to say them out loud. We still have David and Stephen for the next 10 minutes.
Emily, I think we're good.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. This will be on the YouTube channel for VT Hacks, so feel free to come back and check us again.